Rendering is an essential process for the generation of images and videos. Audiovisual content and requirements for its creation are increasing. And in the crypto world, this makes a lot of sense since the rendering of the NFTs themselves or creation of virtual worlds and 3D images require immense power. Think about who is going to render the metaverse. The cost of maintaining these centralized computers is immense. So in this scenario, decentralized solutions arise focused on this objective. Here for now, the king of kings is Render. We will see its solution and its competition. Let's go for it! The possibility of outsourcing processing power for image and video rendering is now available. For example, there is this RNDR solution. It gives the ability to do that processing on a farm equipment. It is not bad as a solution because, as users, we can hire its services and it facilitates all the processing power that would be very difficult to have personally. But it is still a centralized solution. The company has the entire infrastructure and can handle it. However, it wants in every way. Likewise, the possibility of scaling that you have is linked to the investment you make directly. But it is not the only solution that exists. There is more. It is clear that it is a growing need and that many projects like RenderPool will also want to profit from it. Still, this and many other projects are limited by the centralization of these projects that prevents them from scaling and increasing compatibility in the rendering process. In any case, RenderPool goes one step further and already talks about cloud rendering of distributed GPUs. Therefore, here we are already entering into what is the distribution of processing power within a network with the possibility of expansion that this implies. Even so, we are still subject to centralization in terms of owner. And this is where we see the great advantage of the decentralized world in crypto economics. Being able to decentralize a rendering network allows scaling to impossible levels for even large studios or companies dedicated to visual arts or even film production. RenderToken came up with an operational solution in 2018, giving a use case to blockchain technology. In fact, its solution was not a decentralized solution as such, but used the blockchain to run a huge farm of GPUs. They had their own token called Leos that was used within this chain. Furthermore, the challenge was to give mining a competition, as we can see in its medium. They were comparing the performance of a GPU mining Ethereum or rendering, generating an increase in profits of 1700%. The entire infrastructure, which initially consisted of 23,000 GPUs, was assembled in a collaboration with Gigabat, a company located in Washington already dedicated to crypto mining. In fact, this infrastructure was obviously accessible 24/7 and consumed a whopping 4 megabytes. Of course, the agreement with Gigabat provided all the infrastructure and conditioning in terms of cooling and safety systems. The fact is that after a good activity in 2018, there is no trace of what happened next with the company or with the CEO of RenderToken, Marco Giudice, nothing. Not the CTO who came up with the technology part, Marcin Gucki, not even the CEO of Gigabat, Dave Carlson. This is current Gigabat website. Very strange. Some is not a cloud rendering project, but rather all kinds of related services in any need that can be provided by a computer, with which it was also integrated into what is cloud computing. So its services were many and rendering was also exploited, as we see in the medium of its CEO, Igor Lebedev. At the beginning of 2018, it announced a first use of rendering power offered by some. Also very good expectations, but they were diluted. The last official report is from mid-2019. Nothing else is known about this project, although its SNM token is still listed on Binance. RenderToken was designed as early as 2015, but nothing operational was released until 2018. Already with a well-structured white paper and good knowledge of market sector by its CEO, Jesse Franklin, winner of 2 Emmy Awards, the RenderToken solution was already a step further in decentralization compared to the Leonardo render solution. Its technology was already looking for the blockchain as a peer-to-peer solution and does not depend on a central infrastructure. Notice that what they were looking for was to be able to provide rendering power providers to any studio or individual that needs that power at any given time. Anyone could be a provider, and RNDR tokens were earned for doing so. Everything was managed by smart contracts that ensure the entire exchange. Great idea and many use cases for a market sector that was sized at $5.5 trillion by 2025 and growing by 22.5% every year. In this conference in 2019, RenderToken CEO Jesse Franklin spoke about an interesting technology. He was already thinking beyond integrating storage solutions, for example, although what seemed like a good solution was fading. We see from his LinkedIn that Jesse Franklin parked the project at the end of the same year. As a curiosity, we can see that Jesse now works for Facebook. Wow, coincidence? And we have already reached the true jewel in the crown, Render Network. RenderToken is the blockchain product launched by the Otoy company. This is a company created in 2008 that was already founded seeking to solve the needs of 3D artists based on providing processing power for their work, with top investors like Autodesk. Its founder and CEO, Jules Urbach, is a visionary within this market sector and has previously created a product licensed to top-level companies such as Macromedia, Disney, Warner Bros., Microsoft. Already in November 2012, Otoy released a first version of OctaneRender. This is a rendering software that grew later. At that time, not yet thought for an application in a cloud rendering environment. It was in March 2013 that a version in the cloud was launched in which a live event from the manufacturer NVIDIA showed the remote execution of Octane software on 112 GPUs simultaneously. From here, little by little, OctaneRender was integrated to be able to generate renderings on well-known platforms such as Cinema 4D, After Effects, Unreal Engine, etc. At the same time, Otoy was established collaborations with companies of the caliber of Warner Bros. And DC Entertainment, introducing itself in 2015 in a version of virtual reality for creators. They also took the opportunity to introduce the slogan that they still maintain, Render the Metaverse. In 2017, he took another step in top alliances. They launched a 360-degree video project, and shortly after 2018, another deal with a top video game company, Epic Games, to announce an integration between OctaneRender and Unreal Engine. We already see the Otoy was related very well from the beginning, right? And the great moment arrived. It was time to launch the Render Network project in 2018, with the ambitious plan to seek to take advantage of all the computing power for rendering that most computers do not use. As Render's team said, Currently, there is less than 1% of GPU capacity accessible for creators. The rest is wasted, so the goal is to make it accessible at a low cost to everyone who wants it. Already in 2018, they were doing beta testing of Render Network. The goal was to connect people who wanted to perform rendering tasks with people who had rendering power not used on their computers. Those beta tests have already been done with the interconnection of 40,000 GPUs to provide a monstrous power of 1.5 million of a unit of measurement called OB. Consider that at the time, Amazon Web Services provided a GPU rental service charged at 60 cents an hour and offered only 37 OBs. As a reference, let's also take into account that a top company like Pixar a few years ago commented that it uses a data center that is like a supercomputer with a total of more than 24,000 cores. And only in the beta test, Render managed to unite 40,000 graphic processing units. Wow! And after more than a decade dedicated to rendering through GPUs in film, television, design, and gaming, in April 2020, Otoy announced the launch of the Render Network, running on a Microsoft Azure infrastructure, bringing all the potential of the new NVIDIA RTX GPUs in a parallel version of OctaneRender. This fact gives it a much improved scalability and even a notable increase in rendering speed. With Render Network, you can now offer unlimited scalability to GPU rendering. At the security level, it took advantage of the features of Microsoft Azure, but this was Tier 1, focused on business environment, while also developing the fully decentralized solution. Tier 2 and 3 were focused on end users, giving the ability to scale rendering to thousands of GPUs in peer-to-peer nodes for a fraction of the cost. At the same time, the surplus in decentralized network capacity could be used in conjunction with Azure-based renderers. With all the tests carried out by users, Render Network demonstrated a spectacular use case for dApps, with which the blockchain world in general was benefited, giving credibility to its future. Currently, Render has plugins with all the most advanced graphic editing platforms. There is no known platform that cannot take advantage of the monstrous capabilities of the Render Network. Since the public launch in April 2020, Render has seen some spectacular numbers. More than 10,000 active users, more than 1 million render tokens consumed in rendering jobs every month. On the other hand, it has been developing alliances with even Apple, initially making Octane X available in the App Store and later including its Octane application within the operating system itself on macOS and iOS. It is now possible to render in real time through the Render Network from computers as small as an iPhone. In fact, the last thing we have seen is that Apple itself has already noted that the Octane application will be running within the code of Apple's operating system. We will see all iPads and iPhones running the Render application in the near future? Amazing! And already the latest ambitious positioning of Jules Urbach with Render is to take the lead in rendering the metaverse in Solana. At Lisbon's Solana conference a few weeks ago, announced these plans. There, he referred to the rendering of the metaverse as a possibility of creating those high-quality moving frames that are made in post-production in film, television, virtual reality, and 3D animation, but generated in real time. That is the goal, and it requires a monstrous computing power that Render, with its centralized project, is developing in order to obtain. And that's not all. it recently announced an agreement with Maxon that will provide native support for Redshift solutions to accelerate rendering on GPUs, and also for the award-winning 3D animation modeling, simulation, and rendering software, the well-known Cinema 4D. Endless integrations that turn render not only into a unique cloud rendering solution on blockchain, but practically into one of the most complete resources in the world of rendering. Testimonies of the great power that it puts in the hands of users at a very low cost have already been seen, and also fantastic works created. And finally, we have to add that the fact is that has recently been listed in different exchanges. This is a project that never stops surprising. Its plan is very ambitious, no doubt, but the need in the film industry, gaming, 3D design, virtualization, metaverse, etc., it is growing. Without any doubt, it will require a great graphic processing power that no one can assume autonomously, much less a humble beginning user. In addition, Web3 also continues to grow in adoption with increasing demand for computing power in GPUs. And of course, the growth of the metaverse and virtual reality and artificial intelligence environments. If we add to this the recent collaborations and integrations with Apple, Solana, Decentraland, Sia, Brave, Algorand, and others, we are facing a promising future. What we are seeing is that this democratization of rendering capacity is a fact with render, and the demand does not stop growing. Regarding investors, from the beginning, Otoy has had a good cast. Top-level investors such as HBO, Discovery, Autodesk, Yuri Milner. Also, a brief note regarding Render's top-of-the-line advisors. Ari Emanuel, a real big shot in the Hollywood industry. J.J. Abrams, a leading film director who has directed films such as Star Trek or Star Wars. Brendan Eich, founder of the Brave browser. Beeple, well-known digital artist who has worked with leading companies, among others. Amazing project, ambition of the future. Si te ha gustado el vídeo, suscríbete y activa las notificaciones, así YouTube te avisará cuando subamos nuevo contenido. Y dale al like para ayudarnos a llegar a más gente. También disponemos de una cuenta de Twitter donde vamos publicando noticias interesantes. Y hemos abierto una comunidad en Discord a la que puedes acceder para poder compartir y seguir en contacto con nosotros y toda la comunidad. Todos los enlaces en los detalles de este vídeo.